All right, everyone. I hope everyone has been enjoying the information that I have been putting out so far. Right now, we've gotten through all the drudgy stuff, all the technicalities, I guess you can call them. But now we're going to get into some of the fun stuff. So these are, in today's video, we're going to be talking about the basic property inspection. So basically, this will give you an idea of what you can expect at each property. Just a basic property inspection. What is a basic property inspection? We're going to get into that in just a moment, but I just want to say that, guys, let's have fun with this. You know, do some practice exercises. So I'm gonna give you guys a practice exercise at the end of this series because I want to see what you guys doing. If you got a smartphone, I want you to practice on taking your photos and taking everything that we're going to be talking about in here. We're going to get into that at the end of this video, but we're going to have some fun here, okay? So again, we're going to talk about the basic property inspection. All right, so let me pull up my slide and let's get busy. All right, we are back. Again, this is the basic property inspection of the Field Inspection Mastery. All right, let's go. All right, what is our purpose when we go out to determine, when we go out to a property? It's simple. It's simple. Our purpose is just to determine if that particular property is occupied and vacant. And we also need to document or note the condition of the property. As you can see in the two photos here, one picture is obviously occupied, and on the right where you see vacant, that was a picture that I actually took through a window to document that particular property was vacant. All right, because guys, you have to understand that it is not our job. It's not our job to determine who is living at the property, or or whatever. It's not our job to determine who's living at that property. The only the only reason why you want to know who's living at that property is if your instructions specifically ask you for the name of the occupants. Now, I've been in situations like that where, the work order asks me, well, um, who did you speak with? Uh, were they the homeowner or just an occupant or a tenant? Okay, so you're gonna have to, sometimes you may have to find out if that person. A lot of times, people will just tell you, "Oh no, I'm renting." So now you know they're a tenant. Anyway, we're gonna keep going. We're gonna get into that part of it later. But right now, I just want to tell you what our purpose is when we go out to determine an occupancy, um, determine an occupancy status. All right, this is a basic occupancy check. Basically, you don't have to go to the door, you don't have to do anything. What I did, where you see the picture on the right, what I did was all my pictures were taken from the street. As you can clearly see in the photo, there's cars in the driveway, there's holiday decorations up, the yard looks good, you know. That property tells me that it is occupied, okay? So let's move on. So before we move on, those photos were all taken from the street. So there's nothing that you have to do. All you have to do for this type of inspection is uh, arrive at the location, take your photos, and take your occupancy indicators and your address photo and keep moving. Basically, it's going back to the standard photos required. Okay, remember that? Remember the standard photos? Basically, it was a street sign, an address, uh, two street scenes, or the street scene photo. Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's two. The front of the house, and at least two occupancy indicators. That's 7 things, 7 photos that you have to take. All right, and that is on mostly all these kind of inspections. But remember, what I am telling you is not an end all to be all. Always, always, always be sure to check your work order to see what kind of inspection it is, and always read the instructions on your work order. Okay? All right. So, we're going to talk about some different ways of how you can determine occupancy on an occupied property, on a property. And a lot of times it's difficult to determine because some people don't have personal property outside. So it is our job to determine if a property is occupied or vacant. And again, this basic inspection, basically everything is done from the street. So as long as you can tell or have photographic evidence that a property is occupied, you should be good. Because let me tell you, this is a simple job, but it has huge consequences for giving the wrong answers. So make sure you get it right. Okay? And I'm going to go into why, a little bit later. So, but just make sure that you get it right. Just as much as possible, you want to ensure that you are right by calling something occupied or vacant. Okay, so we're still on occupancy indicators. So what I've done in the past, immediately when I pull up to a location, I am immediately looking for personal items, rather that be pets outside, decorations, cars. I don't care what it is. These are things that immediately I am looking for. I'm eyeballing, to see if I can see anything to photograph so that I can provide evidence that this property is actually occupied. Now, some of the other things that I've done was, if I pull up to a home and it's, sometimes, people have these big glass windows, or sometimes not even big glass windows, but sometimes you can see inside the home from the street. Well, now you can actually see personal property inside the house. But so that is another way that you can, kind of tell if a property is occupied or not. But we're going to get into that. But as you're outside, because we don't have to go to the door, because you want to avoid going to the door if all possible. So again, I'm looking for everything I can see on the outside of the property from the front. If I can't see anything that can tell me that that property is occupied immediately, what I've normally done was, if I could drive around the back, or if I'm able to, depending on the house, how the house is situated, if I can position myself in another place where I can actually see personal property in the backyard, I'll take pics. So if you can do that, take pics, especially if there's nothing on the front of the property that can tell you that a property is occupied. But I'm gonna tell you, you never step foot on never go into the backyard of an occupied property. Okay, never. All right, your safety is number one. So never go into the backyard of an occupied property. So here are some of the things that you can look for when you arrive at a property. You want to look for maybe personal property on the exterior of the house. Again, like I said, sometimes you can see personal property on the inside from the street. You can look for holiday decorations, flags, pets, animals, maybe the porch light is on. Maybe you got noises coming from the house, garbage cans at the curb. Look for the lawn, see if it's well kept up, if it's cut. Look for cars in the driveway. I skipped over this water spigot one for one particular reason, because what it is I wanted to go back to that one, because sometimes if you are unable to tell if a property is occupied from the street, sometimes they want you to check the utilities. The easiest utility to check is usually the water spigot by the front door. Usually it's a water spigot by the front door. And I don't normally touch that. This is the last thing that I touch. So let me explain to you what I do. If I cannot tell if a property is occupied or vacant, if I go around the back and still can't determine if that property is occupied or vacant, I then go onto the property. All right. We're going to kind of get into that, but I then go onto the property and I may knock at the door. If I don't get an answer at the door, then I'll check the water spigot outside to see. I'll turn it on for a quick moment, see if there are if there's water coming out of the spigot, like the water's turned on, and I snap a quick photo, turn it back off. Okay, that is how I've done an occupancy status, to let them know that the water is turned on at that property. So it's possible that that property may still be occupied. Okay, so that becomes one of my occupancy indicators. And I told you this, but never walk into the backyard of an occupied property to determine if it's occupied or not. Because let me share just a quick experience with you. I was getting lazy and this property looked vacant, and so I call myself, this was when I first really got started in this. I call myself, I'm gonna call it vacant, because it looked vacant. It's got this red tag on the electric meter that I can actually see, and I start going into the backyard and somebody comes out the side door. Yeah, but I had knocked. Nobody came to the door. So you want to make sure that you don't want to go into a backyard, because there could be pets back there, vicious dogs, an owner with a shotgun. Just kidding, but it is a reality. So you never want to walk into the backyard of an occupied property, because then you will be considered trespassing. Okay, so that is just a rule of thumb. So if you can't see any of those things, if you can't determine if that property is occupied or vacant, again, knock at the door and see if someone answers. Check to see if water is turned on, if there's a water spigot by the front door. Just kind of glance around. See if you can see furniture on the inside or lights on inside the house. And if you still can't tell, now you want to check with a neighbor. Okay? But before you check with a neighbor, if you knock at the door because you couldn't tell if it was occupied or not, you go knocking at the door and somebody comes to the door, and ask you, who are you, what do you want? Just simply let them know that you are conducting an occupancy verification check at the property for their mortgage company. And that's it. Don't get into any other conversations with the occupant, whoever you made contact with. Don't get into any other conversations with them. Just simply let them know that, and just let them know that you couldn't tell. You can say you couldn't tell if the property was occupied or vacant, so you just wanted to knock at the door just to verify if someone's still living here. And that's pretty much plain and simple. Okay? Now, when you make contact, I don't care if it's with neighbors, the homeowner, the occupant themselves is there, you never mention anything about foreclosure, late payments, delinquent accounts, past due payments, defaults on loans, nothing like that. Never mention anything like that, because you'll have a lot of angry people at you for mentioning these words. Okay, because that may not be the reason why you're out there. So you don't know the reason why you're out there. What you do know is that you are there to verify if that property was occupied or vacant. That's it. Okay? Because, I mean, I did a lot of things wrong when I first got started in here. Thinking I was beside myself, and tenants, tenants who would live at the house, or homeowners, they would get real angry with me because I was out there. But this was when it first started, when they first started sending inspectors out, because the homeowners didn't understand why people were coming out photographing their homes. Mortgage companies wasn't explaining that to the homeowners, or either a homeowner had a misunderstanding and didn't, and you can run into some very disgruntled people. And these words right here will really get people uptight if you start mentioning this stuff. So, never mention, I don't care what kind of work order you have, never, never, never mention any of these things to anyone. So why can't I mention that? Well, it's simple. You know, we don't have the financial information about their mortgage status. We don't need it. It's not our job to know that. We may be there to do a random check to see if there's any damages at the home. They do send people out to do that. We may also be there for an annual photo update. Maybe the mortgage company needs updated photos for that property. It can be among a lot of different reasons on why we are sent to a property to photograph and verify occupancy. See, they don't tell us why. Guys, we are just there to do a job according to the instructions for that property. All right, that's it. And I don't know how to really drill this into you. So basically, you're just going to the location, photographing some occupancy indicators, and photographing the home and getting your photographs, and you're gone. Okay, 7 photographs and you're done. 5 minutes usually, because most of the times people have personal property outside. So, but there are those situations where you will have to, for this kind of basic occupancy check. Sometimes you will have to go to the door, knock at the door. Sometimes you will have to check with neighbors, especially if you cannot tell if a property is actually occupied or not. Okay. So again, and I want to reiterate this, and I'm going to share with you why right now. Because again, this is a simple job, but there's huge consequences for the wrong answers. When the mortgage industry first crashed several years ago, the banks would send out people, hire companies and inspectors like ourselves to go out and check for occupancy. And what happened was, this home was reported incorrectly. It was an occupied home, and it was reported as vacant. I don't know all the extenuating circumstances to it, but it was reported for several months as being vacant. Or I don't know how long the bank took, but it was reported as being vacant. And so what happens is, when you report something vacant to the mortgage company, the mortgage tells the mortgage company, hey, we need to send a preservation crew out there to change the locks and take care of our home for us. And that's what they did. And basically, the homeowner was actually still living there. A lot of items came up missing, and it was just this big thing. And it happened to a lot of different people, and it was a lot of it was a result from inspectors being careless and not doing their job properly and submitting inaccurate results. See, what I want you to understand is, how would you feel if someone came to your, if you're a homeowner, someone came to your home and never made contact with you, never seen this person or whatever, and all of a sudden, you have this crew at your front door because an inspector determined your property to be vacant when it's not, and then a crew comes out to start moving your stuff out, cleaning out your house and changing the locks. How would you feel about that? So think about that when you are trying to determine if a house is occupied or vacant. I don't want to scare you or put fear into you, because but I want you to think of other people as you're doing this job. This job is simple and easy, and you can make a lot of money at it, but you also want to do it right. It's not, it's not all about, it is about you making money, but it's also about, you performing your job correctly, your duties correctly. So we're going to talk about, what to look for vacant properties. Okay, if you're looking to see if a property is actually vacant. Okay, a lot of things what I look for is tall weeds growing in the cracks of the driveway. Utilities appear to be off. I look for tall weeds and grass in the yard. As you can see in this picture, it's obviously a vacant house. All the overgrowth in front of the house. I look for signs of boarded windows and doors. As you can see in this photo here, this property has boarded windows. There's no signs of personal property, anywhere. There's no, I look for any, window coverings, like maybe that doesn't have any blinds or shades on the windows. Excessive debris. A lot of times people will just toss out stuff in the front and backyard. So if you see excessive debris, that may indicate to you that this property may not be occupied anymore. And sometimes you'll see newspapers and mail piled up. So these are some of the signs that you should be looking for when you are determining if a property is occupied or vacant. Now, as you can see in the picture on the right, yeah, this is your standard, of course, you look at this property, of course you can tell it's vacant. But there's going to be some situations where you're not going to be able to tell if a particular property is occupied or vacant, unless you perform certain tasks to document and prove that that property is actually vacant or occupied. Okay, so oh, sorry about that, guys. I ended up skipping over one. All right, let's back up for just a moment, because when you go to contact your neighbors, because I talked about if you unable to determine if a home is occupied or vacant, then your next step is to really just go ask a neighbor, if and basically you go to a neighbor's house. Sometimes you have to go to a couple neighbors, just go to a neighbor house and just ask them, does anyone live in the house next door, or when did they move out of the house next door, or something to that manner, so that give them an idea of what you're there for. And if a property is vacant, they may even tell you. And if it's occupied, they'll just say, they may say that they didn't know they moved, or or they're at work right now, or something like that. So a neighbor is a good source to document document your findings, because if I'm not mistaken, they're going to ask you, what was the neighbor's address that you asked? Ask this question to. Who told you that? And you put neighbor and put the address of the neighbor. Okay, so that is what what you're going to do. So going back to the vacancy stuff, because you want to make sure that you have enough photographic evidence to prove it. Okay, to prove that that property is vacant. All right, so you want to contact neighbors, you want to check utilities, you want to photograph the interior through a window if it's vacant. Never do that if it's occupied. Okay, never do that if it's occupied. But if you are determining that a property is vacant and you can clearly see on the inside that there's no personal property, or that is clearly vacant, then photograph a picture through the window, because the more photographic evidence that you have, the better your chances are of the better let me get this right. The more documented proof that you can provide, the better your chances are of it not coming back to you, or if it coming back to you as not being paid, or you providing wrong results, or you causing an issue down the line. Okay, so you want to back your story up. You want to protect yourself, plain and simple. You want to protect yourself. So you want to provide as much photographic evidence to prove your findings as possible. All right, so here's the thing. You always want to make sure that you're doing your job, your duties correctly, because things happen. And so we want to make sure that we're doing our job right while we're having fun, because what's not fun about driving to a location and you don't even have to get out your car, and you just snap your photos real quick and move on to the next one, and you keep going, because and the reason why I say practice at this, because I'm gonna tell you, when I first got into this business, I was struggling trying to get 30 houses done in a day. 25. I was struggling. Because I wasn't familiar with the forms. I wasn't familiar with what to do. I wasn't familiar with any of this stuff. So, and I'm the kind of person that I want anything that I put my mind to, I'm going to give it 110%. I don't care what it is. Anything I put my hands on is going to be 110%. I'm a kind of person that give my all. And I want to make sure that what I do is damn near perfect. I'm just being honest. I'm a kind of a perfectionist. But I'm just being honest. I don't want to go back to a property because they said I didn't do it right. I don't want to not get paid because they said I was missing something. I want everything done right the first time, so I don't have to go back out at my expense to redo something that I missed. I'm losing money, I'm losing time, and that's the reason why this course is so important, and it's important also for you to practice so that you can hone in your skills. Maybe, if you live in a home, or maybe you got a friend that, if you don't live in a house, in a single family home, maybe you can go to a friend's house or something. I don't know, but find ways for you to practice. I've already shared with you the photo requirements. So basically, the photo requirements for the basic occupancy check, again, street sign, neighborhood photos, or street scene photos is how I call them. I usually call them either neighborhood photos or street photos, street scenes. So here we go. Street sign, your street scene photos, your address photo, the front of the house, your, hold on. I done messed up. Okay. Y'all get the gist of it. All right, y'all. I just went through a brain fart. Listen. Okay. Just get your. This is a basic occupancy check and requires just your basic photo requirements. Okay. So that means you got your street sign. Okay. Your street scenes, basically, in both directions. You got your address photo. You got the front of the house. You got the left front and the right front of the house. And you've got two occupancy indicators. Those are going to be, unless your instructions state otherwise, those are going to be, the photos that you can take. So take those 9 photos real quick, take 7 to 9 photos, practice at your house of, maybe driving up to your house and, coming down the street and getting a picture of the street sign, because you're going to have to find your groove. The last, I don't know, the last few years that I was doing this job, I rarely got out of my car. I would just tell you like that. I rarely got out of my car. So what I would do is, and maybe I'll give you guys an example, but as a demonstration, I don't know. Let me see. But I would drive, and I'm getting ready to turn on the street. Make sure, obey your traffic laws and obey. Be careful out there doing this. But I would stop, grab a photo of the street sign. Okay, I got that. I turn down the street and I'm looking for my address. And if it's on my left, if the home is on my left hand side, I try to, make it to where the home is always on my left side, because that's where I'm going to be photographing my pictures, is on the driver's side of the car. So, so as I'm coming up to the house, I get my left front, pull up a little more, get my front, pull closer to the, especially if you can tell if it's occupied, I'll pull closer to the mailbox, get the address if it's on the mailbox, and then if there's cars in the driveway, boom, garbage can at the curb, boom. All right, pull up a little more, right front. I'm done. And as I'm going down the street, I'll take my street scene one way, out the window, boom, another way. But make sure your car is not in the photos. Okay? Make sure no parts of your car are in the photos. So check your photos before leaving the property. Most times, most people are, when you're doing this during the day, most people are, where are most people? They're at work. So most of the time you won't run into any problems. You won't run into any people, other than maybe neighbors or something like that. And sometimes you have nosy neighbors who's going to question you. And, it just be polite and just let them know that, I would not give neighbors any details about what you're doing. Just, you can tell them that you're just verifying the occupancy. That's it. Because some neighbors will want to call the cops on you. So just, you have to just kind of play it smart, is what I'm trying to say. Watch out for your surroundings. Don't get into big arguments with homeowners and occupants or neighbors or anything like that. And if there's ever an issue, with a neighbor, homeowner, occupant, your safety is what's most important. Immediately leave. If you're having an issue completing that inspection because of extenuating circumstances, just leave the property and mark and document everything in your work order. Okay? Let them know that maybe it was no access because, you, or not really no access. I don't know what the exact, I'm not sure what the exact questions are on some of the forms now, but there should be a way for you to, document, that you couldn't determine occupancy because of whatever circumstance that happened. And if all else fails, if you can't find anything in the app, or a lot of times you'll have someone that you can call at the company that you're doing the job for, and just let them know what the situation is, and then they'll be able to guide you on how to properly complete that inspection so that you can submit it and still get paid for it, because they're not going to not pay you, unless you didn't follow some of these steps. Okay, so just do your due diligence so that you can get paid. So I think that'll do it for this one. So the basic property inspection, but go ahead and practice, because I'm telling you, it takes a minute to get used to driving and operating a device, unless you already do that. But it takes a minute to get used to driving and trying to photograph with your other hand, and drive with your other hand, and pay attention to what's going on around you. I want you guys to be safe, safe, among anything else. And so what I would suggest to you is just do some practice photo taking, and take it slow. Find your groove first, and then as you find your groove, speed automatically comes with it. All right, guys, so that'll do it for this video. I will see you in the next one, and I look forward to it.